welcome to the Anime4All podcast. Depending on wherever that got cut, we're beginning here. This is we're reviewing the Dragon Prince, a show pretty much being made by the people who made the Avatar series from Nickelodeon. That's for DMP, but we're reviewing these now in 3 episode portions since we started season 2. So now we're on episodes 3, 4, and 5. No, 4, 5, and 6. I will learn. Hopefully by season 3. Hopefully I'll learn. So I guess as a group synopsis of what's happened in these 3 episode chunks before we start talking about aspects. Essentially, we're now following our heroes. Callum. I don't want to call him Zane, but that's not his name. The young prince. Reina, the dragon, who I want to keep calling Zane too. I don't know what's up with the Z name, but the dragon, a group where they're now they're continuously heading. What?
Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Oh, you're talking to. Okay, never mind. We're following them as they try to find their way to the center of the Kingdom Zadia. These 3 episodes essentially is them, I guess, keeping on track with that, and essentially, they end up on a boat for a good majority of this 3 episodes, actually, because like they end up on the boat on the first episode, and then they spend that half. They spend the rest of episode 3 on the boat, and I think episode 4 they're on the boat the entire time, and I think in episode 3, this 3 chunk, they make it to the island by the end of it, but they cut off there, and it ticks me off so much. If it wasn't for the fact they were watching this late, that would have made me angry. Like I am so sick and tired of shows cutting us off right when they reach the climax. I hate that. It is one thing about Dragon Ball Z I could change is that, but pretty much we can talk about everything in between now. I guess not much happened in the episode 4 because they pretty much, I guess, like we see a little bit of character development. Reina is being a fool again, or being I guess trying to be funny with the whole human pretend to be human thing, which was very cringy to me this episode. I don't know how you felt.
I thought it was campy and kind of fun to like make her like very human. I think the cool thing about this is like she looks like she looks very dramatic. Everybody that meets her takes her extremely seriously. They're like, oh my gosh, it's an elf. She's come to drink our blood. And like these characters like spent the beginning thinking the same thing. When she offered them red liquid, they're like, oh yeah, well, we don't really drink blood. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's berry juice and stuff like that. So what I like is that they're constantly reinforcing how wrong these people were about their assumptions and the biases they had against elves, and how like above all the other characters, she's the one that's most down to earth. She's the one that's like most generous hearted and like just ready to give and you know what I mean, like non-violent. Like she's an assassin who can't kill anybody. And I really appreciate that about her, that she has those goofy, awkward moments, just like the other characters do in their own ways, but she's kind of like doing it almost on purpose, you know? And she's doing it for Ezrin because Ezrin is like, you know, oh, that's really funny when she does it. So she plays it up and she makes a goof out of herself for his sake, even though she must kind of know it's kind of goofy too, you know? And she's kind of making fun of herself.
Yeah, that's true. I guess speaking of that, I'll continue.
I think I like that. I think that makes her like relatable and down to earth, and like even if the moment is kind of annoying, like sometimes those kind of annoying moments make somebody a little bit likable too, you know?
I guess, I mean, I was face palming it. I actually had to pause the episode when that was happening because I had to let the cringe settle and then let the episode continue. But even after that, I was still cringing. But that doesn't seem that was bad. It just like it made me cringe because like, well, I'm kind of over human disguise now, but I understand why she's got to do it because no human likes her. But I guess speaking of things in this episode, I just now remembered. I think this happened in episode 4. I think we come back to Varian in the mirror, and I guess I was right last time we were reviewing this. He clearly was capable of seeing him beyond that mirror. Regardless if he was using the mirror or not, he was definitely capable of seeing him, as we saw throughout the entirety of episode 4, I think, is when we saw that. The elf was showing him objects. I don't think he could hear him, so I guess it was one of those things where he was just showing him what he needed him to do, and Varen, I guess, complied up to a point in which he was trying to tell him to cut his hand, which I was wondering what all that was about. Even the whole like unknown runic symbol that he drew in the air, which was even weirder. This Star Cloak elf, as I have foolishly named him. I swear, if that's what they're really called, I'm gonna be so upset.
Want me to spoiler his name for you?
Huh?
Would you like me to spoil his name for you?
How do you already know his name?
Dragonprince.com/characters.
Do you think it's gonna ruin anything for me in the long run if I know his name ahead of time?
It didn't feel like a spoiler for me. I just threw a link in Discord, and I'll throw one on your chat if it doesn't get bot filtered.
It may get bot filtered.
It looks like it's stuck. Anyway, it's Aravos, it looks like.
Callum Ezrin is his name.
Yeah, it's gonna help me because it doesn't look. I'm not reading the text. I'm just looking at the picture and confirming that these are the names.
Soren, Ruan, Amaya. Oh, it's Amaya. Arvos. Wait, I feel like no, that can't be. Wait, is it? Yeah, it is him. Okay. I think he might be a type of moon shadow elf. I didn't read what is in his bio, but I feel like based on his design, he looks like he might be a type of moon shadow elf.
I thought he was like a star elf, but
he might be.
Jesse noticed this. I didn't notice this, but there's been a spoiler to this character since episode 1.
It's in his room.
No, he when they roll out the scroll, the hands roll out the scroll. And
oh, wait a minute. Oh, it's him. It was the guy I pointed out earlier on. Oh, dang it. I wish I caught on to that so much sooner. I think I literally said that he had stars on his hands.
Yeah, I didn't really pick up on it at all. You picked up on it a little bit, but Jesse pointed it out last time we were watching these together, and I thought that was really cool.
Oh my goodness. That's ridiculous. Wow. So I'm confused and more fascinated by his character now.
Yeah, his character must be pretty important. I don't know anything else. Like I said, I'm not reading the descriptions that go along with these or anything. I'm just using it to confirm names right now.
But that means I think we already know what he sounds like now too. Because that voice. That voice we are hearing doesn't belong to anybody in the show.
It could very easily be his voice. I'd have to listen to it now. I don't want to listen to it on stream, but next time I watch an episode, which knowing Jesse will be tomorrow, I'll tune into that voice. Maybe that's his.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it belongs to anybody in the show. It could be Varian, but the problem with that is, like, why would there be star elf hands on the scroll? But I don't think it belongs to anybody in the show. Which, if it doesn't, that means it's quite probably his. Which means that this is the second time these creators have, input a character with a voice that we keep on hearing. The other guy I'm talking about is the narrator who shows up in Legend of Korra. Like he literally shows up in Legend of Korra. It was really weird. Wow. I didn't even think about that because I brought up that in season 1 that what is going on with this guy's hands? Like they literally got like a guy rolling a scroll back. I didn't even make the connection. Wow, that just blew my mind. Um, I don't even know what to say to us now. Like, that's ridiculous. But we got confirmation that it looks like he can definitely see him. He might not be able to speak to him, but he can clearly see him.
Yeah, I'm not clear on if he could see him immediately or if he like sensed something about the mirror when he finally, and like that scene where the mirror goes black and he touches it with his hand or something. I don't know if he could see him until that moment, or if like he just, because he sensed something from the mirror, or if he could sense, or he could see him all along. It doesn't make sense that he could see him all along unless he was seriously messing with him, so it's hard to tell.
I think he was messing with them. I legitimately think he was messing with them.
The whole thing is almost definitely a trap. Whatever he's trying to teach him is almost definitely a trap. I imagine he's trying to get released from the mirror or something so that he can, or switching places with him or something like that, so that he can get out and do whatever his agenda is.
I don't know if he's a bad guy, and I don't think the mirror is a trap. I still think the mirror is just some like objectively looking, like it's almost like a telescope looking in on the Earth kind of. That's what I view. I don't think. Then again, I mean, I don't know what this mirror is. I still think it's just a mirror that you can see other people's mirrors in the place. That's the simplest explanation that I have for that. I don't have a complicated explanation towards what that mirror is. So I mean,
Runan, that older moon elf, when he was being tortured, he said that you found a fate worse than death when he showed him the mirror.
I mean, that is true. I will say that it's even weirder. I still say that it might be. I mean, it definitely could be a variant. I think it might be a variant on the moon elf, but I think they're maybe their own subspecies. Maybe.
Why are you still convinced it's not a star elf?
Now, I'm not saying that it's not a star elf, but it could still be a subspecies. Like they could be their own thing, but they're like, you know how certain animals just evolve and they change a little bit depending on their environment. Who knows to say that these guys aren't like just some type of like sub elf, like maybe, and maybe they're the ones that because we do hear, and I mean people are still convinced that elves are evil. Who's to say that, like you said, your idea might be true? This guy might be an evil guy. Who's to say that maybe the myths weren't based on him? Maybe
he's not evil. Maybe he just has a completely different agenda. Like maybe he's got his own thing. I don't know.
I'm just saying, like, I mean, it could easily be based on him. Maybe he's the reason why these like rumors are even around. Is maybe it's him. Maybe it's on him.
Yeah. The other question is, like, evil for who? Like, is he evil for the elves or evil for the humans? If the elves trapped him in there, like, or the fairy creatures trapped him in there, maybe he's really trying to help so he can get through and get vengeance on the fairy creatures that trapped him. Like, we don't know. Evil is very relevant to which side he might be on in this.
I mean, I guess I don't really know. It's one of those weird things. Like, it's still very weird that he's on that side. He was trying to get him to cut himself, which before this episode ends, we don't get an answer to that.
No, it could just be like some sort of magic where you have to take a cut of your blood. Like, that's pretty normal.
I guess, but he was verily, I mean, all the way up to everything that he was showing him. He even drank the liquid that, granted that could also just be a part of the whole ploy, but he tried to get him to drink the liquid, and he
like creating a spell where they have to both cast it at the same time.
I guess I don't know. I mean, he drank the liquid to give him a sense of like, this is okay to drink. Then he tried to get him to cut himself, but he did not cut himself before to show him that, I guess give him some like sense of like it's okay. He just held his hand out with the blade on there, just telling him to cut himself, which is even weirder. I mean, Varen literally says, why should I trust you? And then walks out. Only to also get confirmation from the other three kingdoms, too, that they're willing to, they're willing to come meet him at the summit, and essentially comes back inside the room, which is still dark, by the way, and then just covers the mirror, and that's it. We don't really see much. We don't see much more. Granted, judging on how this summit ends, we're probably going to see that elf again. He's going to probably uncover it, and that elf is probably going to just be standing at that mirror the entire time. That he knows more than he's letting on, or he's aware of what's going to happen. So that's it. We don't see much more of that elf. We do see Rafe and everybody on the ship of a blind pirate, who, by the way, he forgets that he has narcolepsy and immediately says it, and then immediately does the gag where he falls asleep.
And it was such a throwaway gag too, because he doesn't fall asleep before or after that.
Yeah, I mean, I was questioning the entire time, like, why wasn't he falling asleep? I literally was like, well, how is this gonna go bad? Where is this gonna go bad? And he mentioned he has narcolepsy. They pan away to Callum, and then Callum turns back at him. He's on the deck asleep in his parrot, which is probably the funniest thing in this duo.
Yeah.
I was half expecting that he was wiser beyond his years, and maybe he was saying that he knew that Rafa was an elf, and he just didn't care.
Well, I think if he knew, he didn't care anyway. She told him he was an assassin. He was like, ha ha, oh, like, and he did pick up on her name. So and his hearing is really good, and like everything else, I think he probably knew that she was an elf. And if he didn't know, that parrot knew, but it didn't seem to matter to them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this guy was more comedy relief. I enjoyed the comedy that he provided, or at least the parrot provided, because I love when I can smell land. Like, he's like, let him finish. Pretty far away. I was like, wow, that parrot is amazing. That parrot is my spirit animal.
I don't know if they're done with him yet, but I've been waiting for him to teach Callum something about connecting with the elements a little bit more than he has. He's definitely got the bug in Callum's mind, but like the way he said, I feel the elements and everything. And, and I get a little Toph vibe from his connection with the elements the same way that Toph had it. So I've been waiting for like more information about him connecting with the elements to like kind of like develop itself. And from that guy, like I think Callum has more to learn from that guy than he's done so far.
I don't know. I don't really get that he's a wise hermit that Callum's got to learn from, or even just a random passerby that knows a little bit more than Callum.
It seems more to me like it seems like just it seems to me it's more like one of many lessons he's going to need to learn before he connects with the elements himself. Not like the lesson, but like it's going to be something that like he remembers that gets him a little closer to connecting with the elements himself. I think he's learning these things like when he meets the node and he has direct like observation of what a node is, and he talks to that previous elf. He got one step closer to connecting with the elements. I think this experience with this guy is going to get him one step closer too, and eventually he's going to understand how to connect with the elements entirely. Very similar to Aang's mission to connect with some of the elements that he had trouble with, where like fire, for example, took him multiple teachers before he got it. Earth too, like connecting Aang, when Aang was trying to connect with the elements, some of them like water he got fairly easily, but earth and fire were a big struggle for him, and he needed to, because fire he's so non-aggressive by personality, and earth is the opposite of wind, is home element, and he had Boomy and Toph, and you know what I mean, like it took at least 2 teachers each for those before he was able to get it, and he had to learn little lessons along the way as well. And I think that's the same thing happening here, that Callum is going to need to continuously have valuable experiences that help him make this breakthrough, because this is a breakthrough. Like it's not something, there's not like a person somewhere that can do this. So he's trying to do something that nobody's done before that we know of.
I know, I didn't really see, I get what you're talking about and I understand everything, but I don't know, that guy didn't like, then again, I mean, appearances can be deceiving, as I've constantly spout. So like, maybe he like, I mean, the connecting with the wind, as he said before, I mean, sailors have to, spend, years of their life on the sea so they gotta know, what certain drafts mean and like certain things, and he can tell when a storm is coming. I mean, he predicted that storm was out there. Granted, he didn't predict that he was going to outrun it. And to me, it seemed like he ran into that storm. If there was any consolation.
Exactly how in control he was of himself when he docked his boat in the storm, and like it just flew up and it docked better than like a regular sailor could do in still water.
I still think that was a parrot. That wasn't him.
It was both of them.
I mean, it was impressive regardless. Definitely not a realistic way to dock, but.
But the idea there is they were telling you what a virtuoso he was, you know? A regular sailor might go down and win that thing altogether, and he was able to be pretty casual about it, because even when he was in it, he was like, yeah, this is too much for us to get across the ocean in. But he was in control enough that when he finally did dock, it was like a perfect docking, and there wasn't really that much going on with it. They weren't in any real danger. He just like saw, okay, this is a little bit more than is realistic to get across, and he's like, we're gonna bring it back. And he knew that beforehand too. He said it might be too much, even before they went out, and they gave it a shot anyway. He was like, okay, we'll give it a shot. Probably because he wasn't really in any danger. He knew if he did go out there, he would know when to turn around.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I don't really know. It's like his character isn't screaming like, all-knowing mage, like or something to that extent.
Yeah,
like,
but he obviously knows something about the ways of the ocean and the wind that the average person doesn't know. To the point where he can literally do it with his eyes closed. You know, that's pretty good. And that's better than, I would say, almost every sailor.
At the point that his eyes aren't closed, he's been blinded.
Yeah, but metaphorically, his eyes are closed.
I get that. I just wanted to nitpick at that.
You know that his eyes are open? He's got patches over both of them.
He said that he said he lost his eyes. I don't know why they'd be open with eye patches on them. That seems kind of counterproductive.
Exactly. So open or closed, they've got patches over them, so they're still covered, and you can't tell me they're open.
Okay, moving on from this guy. We really can't move on from him because like we have a little bit of like we have a little cute moment. I guess the title on the whole, like, it's kind of cool to have these little side moments. It's kind of like what Avatar made Avatar, the fact you get to see like small stories. This isn't really much of a story beat. It's just more of like showing that like, why do I keep want to call him Zane? That's not his name.
The dragon?
Not the dragon.
Cool.
Prince. Ezrin. Dang it, Ezrin. What's the name of the dragon again? So I used to know the dragon's name too.
The dragon's name is...
Zim. Okay. Ezrin and Zim. It's kind of funny to see that when they were sleeping, they were literally. I mean, I knew it was a gag, but at the same time, it was pretty funny to see that every time Ezrin turned, Zen turned with him and even imitated like all his mannerisms. I mean, I know it's a part of like imprinting, where like the baby will mimic the mother. And it kind of like, I was thinking that maybe the dragon saw him as his mother or his father, and like that's gonna probably become an issue when they finally do get him to his mother. I foresee. It's kind of cute right now, but I think it's gonna become a problem when he gets to his actual mother.
We'll see.
I mean, so far he's imprinted on the baby dragon. I don't really know if it's going to become a problem or not.
The meeting with the mother is not going to go well.
Well, I mean, as we kind of probably already foresaw.
Yeah.
I assume that may be the mother. I don't know if it is. It might just be a random dragon. Which is even scarier, by the way. Well, I guess in this episode 2 we start learning. Last week we were talking about how we really need to know more about the history of this world. That's what we've been saying that like for podcasts since we started this. That we need to know more about this world, and specifically the history behind the king and the queen, and Funnily enough, during the summit with the other three kings, or regents is what they calling them, we get that. Also, before we get to that point too, we see I guess the three actual rulers of these kingdoms apparently. So I don't know who the heck. Maybe they're the same rank as like Varen is. You know, he's like their right hand man, I guess. Maybe that's who they are, because these are four separate characters all together. And like we have the youngest ruler, apparently the daughter of this show's first lesbian marriage. Like I would say this much: they really were not afraid to do that, because I know they couldn't do it on a Nickelodeon.
Yeah, it's cool that Netflix was like, yeah, let's do it.
So it was like he was like, wow, they were not afraid to reveal that. But in the backstory, we found out a lot. Actually, we found out how the queen died, or as I say, how the queen died in quotation marks. Because I don't know, when we were listening to that story, was it just me, or could you not tell who was actually telling the story? I feel like we could tell who was beginning it, but as the story went on, I almost feel like I wonder who was telling this part of the story.
I thought it was Lord Viren all the way through, but maybe I'm not so smart. I don't know.
Jesus, man, don't say that to yourself. But what I was saying, because like there were points that we stopped in the story, and then we come back to Callum reading from, you know, the King's Scroll, and we kept on from the story from that point. Because I have a small...
We were jumping down, back and forth between two different expositions here, but Callum was definitely hearing the King's voice, and King... what the heck is his name now? King Harrow. For Callum's part, it was King Harrow very clearly, and for the other one, it was Lord Viren.
Yeah, it was just really weird. I don't know. Like, like in some of those parts, I'm actually kind of curious how Viren knew about them. Specifically, the bedroom when Harrow and his wife were talking about his dream. Because I swear, like, how do you? Is that how Bridge, you know, tackled some of the backstory that Fritz was talking about? Like, how do you know about the parts that you weren't there for?
Oh, because I think Viren's lying and telling his version of the story.
I'm pretty sure he's lying, but I don't really know. Cause like it's another thing too about like the like where does he begin lying? I guess is the good question, because so far
the truth, but like his version of the truth, and it's all very convenient.
Because at some point he has to start lying at some point throughout this entire story, but like
did you really not call bullshit when he was running from the dragon? He turns around and goes, "I can help." And he turns around and
yeah, I mean, I know when I saw that, I was very puzzled and very confused, because up to that point, Varen was like very positive on leaving all the injured, and he was very granted those women weren't injured up to that point with the battle. They haven't even like attacked the dragon hadn't even attacked them yet. If anything, I think the dragon almost attacked them before he turned around and said, "Wait, I can help." So I'm not gonna sit there and say that I didn't. Like I said before, I don't know where he began lying, and I don't know where he began telling the truth. It's one of those things where it's one of those various contradictions that he also presents on the show.
Yeah, definitely.
So I will say I don't really believe 100% he turned around of his own free will. I feel like he had something more to do with their death than he was telling the princess or the new queen.
Like he was under attack and they turned to help him or something. You know what I mean? Like I don't see him doing something that selfless.
He could be. I don't really know. I mean, that's the thing. He doesn't seem.
Oh come on! He was willing to let them starve to death right at the beginning of that when he said like. They came for food and we're like, well, we've got our own food. And then the other guy King Harrow was like, well, we will share in their suffering. And he's like, dude, we're going to die, like, or they're going to die. Why would we die instead of them? Like he that should shape his attitude through this whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, why would we die instead of them? Is his attitude at the beginning of this? Let's not help him in the first place. So, given that, why would he attack the king of the dragons, which he's completely outclassed by? Like, when he's like, he just would, it's completely out of character. He was just trying to make himself sound like a hero. I think that's why the young queen there like called bullshit on his story, because she's like, I'm not gonna help. Before that she was like, I'll think about it, and then he told her that story and she's like, I'm not helping you. You know what I mean? Like, why would she not say that unless she called bullshit as well? Because it does sound like a pretty good story, like, but she called bullshit on it, and maybe like something else about the story convinced her as well, but I don't know.
I mean, what I'm saying, we don't really know the full truth of what happened. And like I said before, I'm not saying that Varen isn't like a bad person. What I'm saying is that I don't think he's 100% all that bad. And also another thing, thinking about, you know, all that had happened and all like the rash decision making the king was making.
Yeah.
Regardless of how what's the word I'm looking for here? Like, because the king was trying to. Because even from the very beginning, all this, before he, you know, said I was gonna help you out, he was already going through his own like, why do I deserve this, like, you know, this luxury? And I get it. At the same time, I'm also sitting here saying, boo hoo, you're a black man who came into power. Get over yourself. And I'm sorry, I had to say that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I had to say that. But I was sitting here like, at the same time, it's like the king is only really trying to do good to make himself feel better. You know, regardless of how like 100% goodwill that is, he was only doing it because he felt bad that he had it good. And I'm not saying that it isn't a good trait to, you know, to want to do good. But at the same time, I feel like if you want to do good, you should do good for the sake of doing good. Not do good because you feel bad and it's going to make you feel better. Because at the end of the day, that isn't doing good. That's, you know, doing good. That's doing good under, that's trying to do good under the guise of you trying to be a good Samaritan. He was trying to make himself feel better under the guise of being a good Samaritan. Like, is it everything? Like, granted, I'm not sure 100%. I'm not sure how 100% everything went down, during that entire story, especially with the queen changing her mind to go with them in the first place. I still feel like maybe she went there to prevent them from, you know, getting this heart. But we'll get to that in a minute. But I like, pretty much is like he was doing all this to make himself feel better. You know, even his wife, who was a good person, saying that you were just a good person, you did all this, you were, you know, you like, you've worked to this point, you deserve everything you've gotten. Like, everybody, I just feel like a lot of this has the issue with he was feeling bad, you know, that he had all this money, and I just feel like at the same time I can't feel a lot of sympathy for a person who's crying on a silk bed, crying, why me? Why did I get all this? It's kind of, for me, it's a really hard to feel bad for a person like that, 100%. Because like, the king also had a kind of responsibility towards those deaths for those women too. You know, if he wasn't feeling bad, you know, he wouldn't have taken Varen's proposition to go out there and get that heart in the first place. But that's just me. Like, I kind of like, I was irritated kind of by the king at this point, because we've seen he's had an ego problem from episode 1. That's one of the reasons why he didn't want to, like, you know, do dark magic again, because he used it to get the heart in the first place. But that was me. I mean, that might be harsh and maybe illogical. I don't really know, but I just, like, it's kind of weird that, you know, all this really was snowballing from him feeling bad.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like, that's not 100% all bad, but at the same time, it's like, with the way they're painting this entire story, it kind of makes the king seem like a bad person too, only only really being bad because he's trying to be a good person. Like I mean, even the letter he was talking to his son, and he was like saying that, you know, don't let the past shape you, the person and the person you're going to become in the future of the kingdom. Like cut the ties from the past. So clearly the king saw his actions as being bad as well, for good or worse. I don't know which action he saw as being bad and what action he didn't see as being bad, but clearly he wanted Callum and Ezran to make their own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry for like ranting on that. You have something to say?
Not on that one.
Not gonna touch that with a 10-foot wall.
I am not anywhere near that one. Sorry.
Gee, you're just gonna let me. You're just gonna leave me. You're just gonna leave me hanging.
Yeah, you just go ahead with that one. You can run that tightrope. I'm gonna sit over here.
I think I'm done crossing tightrope, so we're gonna move on to the next portion of this story.
Said the DMP never really stuck around.
Oh, did he leave?
I don't think he's been here for a long time, but no, he's not here.
Oh, I mean, I don't think these types of streams are his. He's probably just came by to check to see how we were doing. He usually does that.
Yeah, he's cool.
But moving on to the next portion.
Can I say one more thing about the young queen in that scene?
Well, right ahead. Okay. I talked this entire podcast to the ground with what I just said.
That's all right. I did want to get to this because it's an interesting observation. Lord Viren, if that story he told was true about the lesbian co-queens or whatever you would call them, and she's their daughter, and the way he almost gave up his life to save them was the truth, and how he saved her entire country was the truth. Why would he be so adamant about taking her out of the group for this group decision before she even spoke up against it? If he really thought that she was just a child and that his country had recently saved her country and put their suffering up on par with theirs, you know what I mean, and been the truest, most self-sacrificing friend possible to them, you know what I mean? Why would he want this child queen, who should be his greatest ally in all things, off that, unless the story he told was not exactly true and she knew it?
Here's the thing. I wasn't saying that he wasn't lying in that story. My question and the bigger issue that I was having was I couldn't tell where he was telling there was certain parts where I could definitely tell that there was something not 100% being said that was true, but I couldn't tell where he was telling the truth. And when he started lying, only certain parts in the story I could sit there and say that doesn't sit right, with the flow of the story.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell where he was telling the truth and where he was lying, because he was definitely telling the truth and then a lie, telling the truth and then a lie. He was definitely seeding in lies, and I agree that she definitely saw through that entire story. My biggest question was, why tell this story to this girl? Because from the way you told it, you made it seem like you had a hand in killing her parents. The
way he told it, he almost died trying to save her parents.
Yeah, but he still died. So in any real situation, that story would have that expected result. In my honest opinion, if I was him, I knew for a fact that she was not gonna side with me, because any realistic kid, who isn't as intelligent and as wise as she is, as she's clearly shown, would have easily said, "You killed my mom and dad," and ran out. She was observing that entire story. So to me, granted, because he already knew she was more intelligent than she clearly let on. He even complimented the fact that she was wiser than her years. So to me, he wasn't accounting for something that apparently she foresaw, and he was not aware that she was gonna be I mean, she even commented on the fact that amongst all the adults in that room, she was the one acting the most mature, which I thought was pretty funny.
it was completely true too. Israel too, like the young people in this are very, very smart.
So in my honest opinion, and what I took from that entire thing was, why tell this girl the story? Because honestly, first of all, she's gonna hate you, regardless if she let you know that she doesn't like you. You told her.
He knew she knew the ending because she says it partway through. She goes,
"Yeah, she knows they died. She didn't know how. She knows that they're dead.
I think she knows more than she was letting on, but yeah. I mean, I think they both know that she knew a lot. I think he was trying to retell the story so he wouldn't look so bad, and if she believed it, then she would like change her mind. Like if she was like, "Oh, I didn't realize it happened that way," and blah blah blah. But I think he was trying to retell the story in a way that would make her feel better.
All I'm really saying is the way that story ended, 100% the deaths on them seemed more on his head than anybody else's head in that story. Regardless of how retelling it was, he still ended on the fact that they died. It was like the biggest, like, it was like the biggest, I guess, like sacrifice that was made. What he was trying to tell her is that sacrifices need to be made. Like the biggest sacrifice was our parents. That entire thing, and he, from the way he told it, he had a huge hand in them dying, because he was trying to help them, and at the end really messed things up and put them in danger. From the way all that figure panned out, in my honest opinion, I wouldn't have told that story to a girl who I think might have been at least 9. Actually, she might have been the same age as Ezra. Actually, she still seemed kind of young.
I was putting her at like 12ish, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, she could be probably 12, but she seemed almost like she could be his age. I don't really know. They don't really say how old she is. They just say that she's like a young queen, but regardless of all that, it just seemed to me that I wouldn't tell that story to her, because she's gonna make her own assumptions already, and she's already shown that she's more intelligent than I thought she was. Clearly she spent her entire life being underestimated, so she knew how to handle that situation. But it seems to me that that was not the best story to tell her. Regardless of how you were trying to manipulate her, that was not the best story to tell her. If anything, I would have left out the fact that maybe I had a hand in that death if I was really trying to 100% trying to sway her with a lie.
Yeah.
I would have left out the fact that I was responsible for her death if I was him. But then again, he wasn't probably thinking too much about that. But if I was trying to manipulate her, that would have been my first of all. Make sure that however I weave this lie, I'm out of the crossfire of death blame.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I don't know. I mean, granted, at the end of the day, it didn't work. She pretty much she says she's not helping, and then all the other kingdoms outright say that they're not helping, which I honestly didn't think they were going to, because with the way they were saying, "I'll help if they help," like that was not a good answer. Like you guys weren't trying to help at all, were you?
He sounded a little spineless to me.
Well, I mean, one of the kings did anyway. Well, actually, all 3 of them anyway, really were spineless. Well, both kings and then both queens, but well, except for the young one, the other queen, they were all saying, "I'm going to help if the other ones help," but clearly there was no real alliance from the way that things sounded. On top of that, apparently they were at each other's throats years prior. So it seems kind of weird that you think that you get help from people that you were once war enemies with. But also that, I mean, I guess we can talk more about the situation that happened with the Titan, and a lot of like the inner quarrels amongst like everybody related to the story. Like Harem's wife. It was kind of interesting that I really found it interesting. They actually, when they were talking about the easy way out of the situation.
Real quick, with the what's true and what's a lie part of that story, just before we leave it entirely, I have increasingly, right from the beginning, I've wondered if the way he tells that story about being in the portrait, if it's true. I'm waiting to find out that like somebody else was in that portrait and it was painted over or something like that, because like I'm starting to basically think that he wasn't really in the portrait at that moment, or it wasn't really supposed to be the official portrait or something like that. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, the thing is, I mean, that portrait exists in some of the kingdoms, so it isn't a faked one. I mean, even Herod, before Harem was dead, Even brought up the fact that you were in this portrait. Even like
The portrait.
Varen even said that like I don't know why you like let me in that portrait. So I mean, Hera clearly wanted him in the photo.
Yeah.
I mean, like that was all stated like 100%. Like if anything, maybe the events that led to it weren't 100% true. But that painting exists inside the kingdom way before any of this happened. Now maybe there's somebody else in that photo that we don't know about yet. I don't really know, but it seems to me 100% that he wanted him in that painting to begin with.
Yeah. All right, let's jump to episode 6 then, because I've got about 20 minutes before I burn out, I think. Which is the fight with the Titan.
I mean, we're going to move on to the fight with the Titan, but
Sorry.
It's no problem. The entirety of that fight, it was a very weird situation. I mean, I like to point out that when they were preparing for like that fight, I like that like when Heron and his wife were talking, I forgot that I guess they were like war veterans or whatever. So when I was seeing them like I guess sparring each other, it was quite interesting to see that she was quite formidable of an opponent. Almost to the point that he almost didn't lose because she decided to quit. Well, actually, I think he did lose because she swung the sword out of his hand, but that was interesting. But I guess leading into the fight, that was a very weird thing. I honestly said that I was sitting there thinking I couldn't really tell that was a golem body until he got up because I thought it was just a hand at first. I literally thought maybe that thing was
I totally thought it was a golem body. I thought it was interesting that Lord Viren suit yourself and he let him climb up there, and then if you look really subtly, Lord Viren takes a step back when they climb up on top of it. He knew that thing was going to wake up. He was letting them go into a dangerous situation. That builds onto what I said earlier, that I think he was not the hero of that story the way he built himself to be the hero. I think when they climbed up and he took a step back, I think that was a hint that he'd been like willingly putting them in danger through the whole thing.
I don't know if he was telling that story to make himself look like a hero, if I'm being legitimately honest. I don't think he was telling it to paint himself as a villain. But from all the events that I...
The fact that he took that little step back when they were stabbing into that thing means I think he knew that there was at least a really good chance that thing was going to wake up when they stabbed it, but he didn't warn them and he didn't say anything. He just stepped back and watched to see what was going to happen. I think he preferred them dead.
I don't know, because the problem with that whole theory is that he was like intending to do something to their kingdom. I don't really know, because like, I mean, even like, because I mean, they were all gonna die regardless of their king and queen dying anyway. So like, there was no point of him being even, stepping in. Like, there's a lot of small things you're kind of like, I guess, saying that are there that I don't currently see that involve him in their kingdom and whatnot.
This is a high quality but very low budget animation, where they've had to make things choppy and things like that, and where they can help it, they don't have background movement. Like when Lord Viren is talking to the young queen, and you can see the king and queen behind them. Those king and queens are completely stationary because they just don't have the budget to have animation where like everything in the screen that's seen is moving. Total soldiers in the background, the soldiers are motionless for the most part because they can't afford to animate this stuff. So to have him take a step back was a budgetary decision I mean, a small one on our side, but someone with a tight budget, they had to decide every single time they were going to show movement, and they showed him take a step back. And it was very, very subtle, but on their side, they made the conscious decision to do it. And a place where budget, like movement, was like something that they had to think about every single time.
No, I get that, but what I was saying that from like all like story and exposition and everything like that, I'm not saying he didn't take a step back, but what I'm getting at is that that when you say when saying that there's some like ulterior motive all in there, and I don't see Varen, like, he seems more wanting to control his kingdom versus control like another kingdom. He doesn't seem that like forward thinking. to the point where, like you
Really?
say,
So Lord Viren was capable of casting a spell that created enough ice to completely cover the Dragon King's head. He had the spell with him and prepared to go, but he did not cast it on the fire monster and instead let the lesbian queens fight that thing themselves the hard way. And you think that he wasn't hoping they would die in that fight?
well, I don't. That doesn't really make any sense towards like, okay, well, okay, he's gonna have them die. So, well, what was the next step? Is he just gonna let the other people die? Because there was no point of him. Like, I feel like there was too much. He invested too much to get that heart to begin with. To like, because that spell wasn't just for that kingdom. It was for like a lot of kingdoms actually.
Yeah,
It seems
I
kind of
think there's
weird.
more to this. I think there's more to the story. I think that the king had lots of really good reasons to be close with them, but I think Lord Viren sees them as an obstacle. I'm not sure I understand why yet. I think we're going to continue to learn why, but I think he was totally okay with them dying in that fight. I think that he did not help out with his ice spell. He actually didn't help out at all in that fight. He didn't cast an ice spell, and he didn't warn them when he knew full well that he should, because he took a step back. Lord Viren then suggested that they leave the wounded behind, which includes Callum's mother. We don't know who the father is, or in this series, if it is a father. Although somewhere down the line he had a father. On this story, as many questions as it answered, it raised 10 times more for me.
Callum's mother wasn't in there.
Callum's mother was the one that looks just like the wounded one. Callum's mother, who's the deaf one?
Amaya?
Yeah. Callum's mother is Maya's sister. Amaya's sister.
Are you talking about the stepmother or blood mother? Because that was never even confirmed or like whatever. I don't know what happened there. I'm still confused by that.
If you want confirmation, look up Amaya in the dragonprince.com/characters, and you'll see that Callum is her nephew. And
yeah, I mean I could be if by marriage you can become someone's nephew.
You sure can, but she also identified that person as her sister. And then when she died, they had Callum, young Callum, like it was like 5 there, that she was dead at the end of the episode.
Are you confusing who is Callum in your mind? I just want to make sure I'm getting this correct.
The White Prince, magic using one.
I don't like. I mean, are they related by blood? Because that's what I'm still don't get. Because it doesn't seem to really be established for me.
Callum is a prince, correct?
Half prince, but yes.
Right, but he's a prince. The king, the Black King, is not his father, correct?
Yes.
The White Woman is the king's wife in that scene, correct?
Yes.
The White Woman is Amaya's sister, correct?
Yeah, but there was no stated that he actually was related to her by blood.
Okay, so even if they don't directly say it, it is extremely clear, undeniably clear, that she is his son, that he is the stepson, who they say, of the king.
Yeah, I know he's a stepson, but I mean, all I'm really trying to figure out here, all that really matters to me is if he really is her real biological son.
Absolutely is. He is absolutely her biological son. I think it even straight up says it, but she and Amaya are sisters. She is married to the king. He is the stepson of the king, and she's married to the king, and he's obviously not the king's son, so he is the stepson of the king, and she is married to the king, so he is of her, but not the son of the king, which means she probably had him before she got married to the king. And then the two of them together had Ezrin, who are half brothers.
I'm still here. I'm just like, I'm still not convinced. I mean, yeah, there are things
I
that
am
there
100% convinced. I am
there are
convinced
things
enough for
that, I
you.
mean, there are things that definitely like that shout that he is definitely um her
And at
biological
the
son,
end
but
of
at the
the
same
episode,
time,
after she
I wish they would just confirm it already.
at the end of the episode, after she dies, they have that scene where they have to go. Oh, he's dead. That she's dead.
Yeah, I know they kind of. I wish they would like. I mean, okay, then again, I guess Ezra would have been old enough to understand those words, so never mind.
Yeah. You you're you're calling this headcanon way much more than it is. It's absolutely there's like 9 different ways to confirm this.
I just want them to more just to say it, honestly. I don't want.
Yeah,
I don't really want to just sit there and then assume that, you know, everything that's important that he is definitely her biological son is like, because like I've done that before in other shows and I've been completely wrong. I don't want to. I don't want to step into that territory again.
It's really not an assumption at this point, but okay.
I'm not convinced. Let's say that much. You can be convinced all you want, but I'm still not convinced. I at least want, because I'm still confused. I mean, granted, I've seen all the things. I even compared him when he was younger. Compared when he was younger to her. I just don't want to sit there and really assume, because from the way the adoption sounded, it seemed like they both adopted him. They only had one kid, and that was Ezra.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are things. I mean, like the king said, he knew his stepfather, which makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, I'm just like, at least maybe something else needs to happen first before I'm really 100% convinced, or they just come out, just straight up come out with it that he is her biological son. Because I know about the stepson. I'm already 100 on board that, you know, he is definitely the stepson and, you know, it's half brother. But like, I mean, even the half brother thing. But it's just like, okay, I need a little bit more convincing first. I don't want to step in that territory and then like and get cut off again.
I don't have the slightest doubt though on my side.
That's good. I'm not saying that you aren't wrong. I mean, aren't right. I'm just sitting here. That was not fully a slip. That really wasn't. But I don't want to step in that territory yet. I've looked at everything. I've even saw similarities between him and.
So let's play with the idea that it is. Let's play with the extreme likelihood that it is his mother for a moment. She was suggesting that he leave the queen's sister behind when she was wounded. And he was okay with the queen and her sister staying behind. Right?
I was waiting for the continuation of that sentence.
We don't know who the father is of Callum, right? So here's where some headcanon comes into play. What if Viren is the father and had an affair with the queen, and that was the falling out between him and the king, and he was hoping because the king didn't know yet. About the affair.
I mean, I that whole Varen might be his father thing. First of all, I think that's already been confirmed. Not true, because I think the king said he knew his stepfather before he died. Knew his father before he died. I think that was actually something he said to him when he was younger, that he knew. I think it was one of the things that he opened up with in the letter, saying that I wondered, should I have like should I have loved you like an actual father instead of like letting you cling to the one that you lost.
Yeah, and that would be too Star Wars if it was Viren and he was the father that was still alive, and they're like, well, you don't know him anymore because he's dead. So that's not true. His father and how the king came to either marry a woman with a child, or
I mean, I know the thing is, I mean, there's too many.
That then had someone else's child. You know,
there's definitely things out there. Now I got to really look at them in this episode, saying that they actually might be, like, there's like 95% chance they forget about like biological and stuff like that. But I mean, even his love for his little brother is like, I don't think a stepkid could have that kind of like, you know, unless they weren't biologically. Actually, no, they would be biologically related, because nothing lived because they share the same mother. Never mind. All I'm really saying is like I know you hate it when I say that I want it spelled out in front of me. This isn't really me being stubborn or anything like that. I rather at least the show. I rather the show just
certain things that you get a little pedantic about.
Oh, this isn't the bike thing. No, don't get me wrong. This is not the bike thing. I have a whole. I already listed my issues with Hermes. We're not gonna get into that because that's a door you don't want to open. I closed that thing like months ago. You don't want to open that door again.
Was Froppy born or did she hatch out of an egg?
I'm certain she was born because they don't get their abilities until they turn 4.
Well, the parents would be 4 by the time they had children.
Back to Dragon Prince. I know you get irritated with me with the whole I want them to spell it out, but it's like there's not enough there yet for me to 100% say. Because, like, I mean, if that's true, that means Callum does have the rights to the throne, but clearly the king wants his youngest son. It's really weird to me. If, like, he
doesn't have the king's bloodline, so it makes sense.
Regardless, though, that you have an older son who clearly is living more like,
He doesn't have an older son, he has an older stepson. I'm pretty sure that's how that might work, or it's at least defensible how it would work in this universe. That the one with blood connection to the king would take precedence.
I don't think Herod cares about that too much. That's just me, considering that like from what I could tell from this guy, he likes to break the mold like a lot of the times. But I mean, that's me taking assumptions from his character and how he acted. It to his death. But it's one of those things. Let me guarantee there's a lot of things like that sit there and said that that's the biological son. And like I don't really know. Granted, he did go his way to go and comfort Callum, so there's 100% possibility that woman was definitely his biological mother. But
yeah.
I rather.
Fact, we'll let you know.
There better not be a DNA test for this. This is a freaking stupid show. But like, I'll just go on the limb here. So yeah, but they're biologically until otherwise stated. It's just like, I mean, there are definitely a lot of things they're pointing out. I mean, the shape of their face, the shape of their eyes. There's definitely a lot of like. They went out of the way to make sure that when they drew him, he definitely looked like her. But At first I thought you talked about the queen was injured, but like, no, she didn't get injured until like she came back to help him. Which I guess it was even a weird thing in terms of how she died.
Was okay with her staying behind with her sister.
I honestly, no, this is me being for real. This is not me trying to be funny. Honestly, I honestly didn't think that was such a big deal, considering that they were both warriors and they could take care of themselves. And on top of that, she even volunteered. She even volunteered to stay behind. It wasn't like
the two queens versus the Dragon King was nothing. That was basically a massacre.
Yeah, but I feel like to me. Let me just extend this here. To me, it didn't really matter much, considering that they were capable of handling themselves. And I don't think they would have been dumb enough to get caught in the Dragon King's crossfire.
Can I ask a stupid plot hole question?
What, season 1 plot hole or season 2 plot hole? Or potentially season 3 plot hole? Where are we going with this?
The Dragon King apparently comes out at nighttime, right?
You mean during like the morning, like sun and rise, and then leaves at sunset?
Yeah, why don't they just hide?
Well, that's assuming that they can hide, like, I mean, yeah, like the simple thing, but that's assuming that they can hide like for an entire day. Because they had to wait until like, it was sunset. They had to be there, probably hungry with their like if they're sick and whatnot, behind rocks for an entire day.
Hungry for a day? That sounds terrible.
Honestly, do we have to go this again? I've already complained about the king and his stupid like like not democracy, but heroism complex. I don't really want to complain about that again now.
They had a group of soldiers that were injured but able to travel the entire day, just not as fast as a healthy person. They could have hid for a day and given them some chance to heal up a little bit. Ducked into a cave somewhere. they played this really dumb. And like I said, Lord Viren had specifically, I think it's very interesting that he specifically had a powerful ice spell. And we know from watching this lore that you can cast spells fairly often. Maybe not continuously, but you can cast them fairly often. So that same spell he used on the dragon, as far as I can tell, he could have used twice and used it on that other monster too.
I don't know. I mean, if you want to start poking holes at some things in here, I had an issue with that fight with the Titan. And my specific issue is, from the way it was told, the things that this Titan did specifically don't. I don't know. Okay, first of all, they were launching harpoons into its limbs, and after they went into the magma, they burnt immediately. Like he tore them off. Why is the center of his chest any different?
I don't know. That's a great question.
In my honest opinion, I was going to say humble. I mean, not humble. Jeez, I need to work on that. In my opinion, that should have been no different. Why all of a sudden there's a hole in my chest? Oh no, there's a harpoon in there. I can't get rid of it. Oh, what they're gonna do now? They're gonna toss the thing over the bridge? Oh no, suddenly my limbs stop working. Like, excuse me?
Mm-hmm.
And that entire fight, do you know what I was expecting to happen that didn't happen? I'm actually kind of happy it didn't. I was expecting that thing to start speaking English. Like, I was literally almost, because like, the wife made a...
Waiting.
The wife
I was waiting for confirmation of sentience too.
Like, the wife made a big deal about, does it have a family? Can it think? She made a big deal about it. Like, I was sitting here like, are they going to do a stereotypical, no, I have a wife and family, don't kill me, and then kill him? And like, at least he didn't do that stereotypical thing. You know, I have a wife and family. Now, granted, he can still have one. We don't really know, because the story got cut off after they got the heart, and after them being attacked by that Dragon King. Which actually, I guess is even more of an interesting plot development. They went in there to get the heart. They got attacked by the Dragon King. Did he get the egg after all that, or is that the part of the story he did not tell? Because like, if we're being legitimately nitpicky, that egg doesn't fit in that story, and that's a part of the plot that we still don't know anything about. It's like, when did the egg come back to the castle?
I would imagine that the dragon killing the queen in that raid started a cycle of revenge.
I mean, I think Heron said that he got revenge on the elves, and that's why he was going to let the elves get revenge on him.
Yeah, I bet that started, killing the queen probably started the revenge cycle.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you haven't told us yet. I mean, we only got a tiny piece of like, actually, the best person they could even ask, now thinking about this, considering that, like, there's a person in that story that he has no real control over. And actually, interesting enough, she did not move at all during that, like, story after she got hit, was Amaya. Amaya was there the entire time. If we could really get the story from her.
We really could. Although she seems to hate elves, so she might back it up his story a little bit. Also might be why she was made a general.
She also seems to hate who?
Elves.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen a lot of scenes of her fighting, fiercely and angrily fighting elves so far.
Oh, speaking of elves, before we end this off here, I mean, yeah, she does hate elves for whatever reason. I guess speaking of elves, I wanted to bring this up, but I just wasn't sure when. I mean, at the end of that, you know, like the last will and testament that he was reading, he brought up the fact that the main reason why he sent them to the Panther Lodge was for him to get that cube. Because it's clearly he was expecting his stepson to go somewhere. Clearly. So he must have foresaw that he must have known about the egg, and he must have foresaw that they were going to go and take the egg back to the border.
Maybe that'd be really interesting, wouldn't it?
But what's more interesting to me is the words that he stated at the end of it. This was a key to a place that holds an elf. I forgot the elf's name, but he's the first mention of an elf that it doesn't seem like he hates. He's the first elf they ever mentioned by name, and he mentions that like he's an all-powerful elf that knows all the primordial magics. It doesn't seem like he talks about him like he's angry at him or he hates his guts. He even speaks of him like he can't wait for Callum to meet him. Do you think it's interesting?
I think it's extremely interesting.
Amongst all the elf hate talk, he's the one elf that he doesn't really. No, he doesn't say much about him, but he doesn't. But in the little he does say, he doesn't seem like he hates him. If anything, he seems like an old friend. So I don't really know. I mean, I caught on to that when he said it. I was like, "Excuse me, you just mentioned an elf. What's going on here? Like I expect you to hate elves more than anybody."
Oh wait, the Archmage Aravos.
Yeah, Arvos. Yeah, that guy, the elf. He mentioned he was an elf.
But that's the same elf, the star elf.
Wait. You mean a dude in the freaking mirror?
Yeah, it belonged to him.
I thought I recognized that name when I was looking at it on the freaking website.
A master of all 6 primal sources. Which is interesting too, because he mastered all 6 primal sources, which means you don't have to be born in a primal source to master it. He must have found a way to do it.
Well, he was already a magical creature. I don't think any of that really applies to him. I don't think they said that you, like... I think what she says is that in order to use magic, you had to be born near a nexus or a primal source. I don't think she said you were locked to the element, like, once you were born.
Stupid observation, but Aang's name begins with 2 A's and Aravos begins with 2 A's, and they're both the master of all the elements.
That and that's another thing I would have never picked up on, and I'm glad you picked up on it, but I'm gonna go with your train of thought that there's probably a reference to Aang. Actually, no, correction. Let me rephrase that. It's probably like a reference to the Avatar. They were probably trying to figure out a way to like get away with it. Which, by the way, as for ending is here, more promotion for Avatar. I just found out that
it's available on Netflix.
Yeah, they allowed the Avatar to show up on Netflix.
I think that's cool.
Both series. I was like, wow, did Nickelodeon actually let you have the series that you put your blood, sweat, and tears into? I'm actually surprised. Awesome. Not that there's any confirmation, but I guess maybe if that is the case that they now own the rights to Avatar, maybe... I don't know if they want to, because it's been years since they touched it.
I'd love to see another book.
If they decide to go back to it and they do an Earthbender, I hope he or she is related to Toph. I want to see that person. I want to see that personality with those powers. I really freaking do.
Me too.
That'd be ridiculous. I can only imagine it's like I am the greatest Avatar ever.
I'll take just seeing Toph as an adult.
You already saw her as an adult.
Yeah, but I mean like adventures with her as an adult, not as an old woman and not as a kid.
I mean, you saw her as an actual adult. She was a police officer.
Yeah.
I mean, not much of her was seen, but we definitely know that she would. Honestly, the only reason I want to see a little more Toph, I want to see the men that unfortunately married her, or at least had gotten in bed with her, because we literally have 2 children, and they're both hers.
That's awesome. Okay, listen, I have one observation that's small and one question to ask, and then I really have to go to bed.
I mean, we can end it off there. So
the observation I have is when we saw Maya fighting the fire elf this time, it was a more extended battle, right? And they had that same fire sword. I noticed that Amaya avoided using her shield in that fight and tried not to block that fire sword with it, and to the point where she actually put the shield on her back while fighting her so that she could dodge and get out of the way faster. She would not use her shield to block that sword. And then there was a scene halfway through the battle where she's on a rooftop and an elf shoots an arrow at her. She takes the shield off of her back, blocks the arrow, and as soon as she can, she puts the shield back on her back. I thought it was really interesting because you know how we've been wondering if that shield is like that sword proof? It looks like she was avoiding using the shield against that sword when she had the choice. So I made me wonder if the shield was just resilient to it as opposed to proof of it. You know what I mean? And then the other question I had is one thing that we haven't addressed at all is that bird thing that flies through the sky over their boat right at the end of episode 6. What do you think that is?
A dragon?
It'd be really interesting if it is a dragon, wouldn't it? It looked more like a phoenix or something to me. And given
it looked like a white dragon to me. It looked like a white dragon to me, if I'm being honest.
It looks like a phoenix to me, and if it was a phoenix, I think that's interesting because this book is named Fire. But a white dragon would be like typically white dragons are associated with snow. But anyway, I'm sure we'll find out by the time we do the next 3 episodes. But I just wanted to throw that quick question out there.
I honestly thought it was a dragon because they made it seem like it was. They were kind of scared. I mean, granted, you don't know whatever it is. They're gonna be scared of it regardless because you don't know what it is. But
if you look at the shape and the way its tails and everything, it's the same approximate shape of that moon bird that carried them up to this point.
I mean, it could be a phoenix from the Sunfire people. I mean, honestly, because but the thing is, this book is called Sky.
Oh, is it?
It's either sky or moon. It isn't like sun or something like that.
If you look at it, it's around. There's about 229 left in the episode when it just appears. It's really fleeting. 226 to 227 or so is when it appears. But it could be like a dragon, but it's got a long flowing tail and I got a bird vibe from it. But you could be right because its body does seem to stop very shortly after its wings, which is more like a dragon-like pattern. But it flaps its wings and everything. It looked bird-like to me. My impression was bird, but I could see it being a dragon as well. I'm like 60-40 bird and 40% dragon.
I'm more convinced dragon, but I can't really look at it right now because watchcartoons.com is having a hard time loading the episode.
Anyway.
Oh, there it goes. It's not loading now. I don't know. It still looks mostly dragon to me, if I'm being legitimately honest. Like, the shape is, like, very dragon-like. I mean, the wings spread out pretty far. I mean, I could definitely see where you could definitely thought it was a phoenix or something, like a bird. Because the wings definitely look feathery, but honestly, I think some dragons have been known in fiction to have feathery wings. They're not all scaly.
Yeah, the one dragon we know, the 2 dragons we know of now, I think the king of the dragons is kind of feathered, isn't he?
I don't know. The King of Dragon was the one that was the one that attacked them in the flashback.
I'm curious. My memory of it can't put together whether or not it had feathers, though.
I don't think it had feathers.
It has kind of like it has hair, like almost like a mane.
Well, that's what the little dragon got. That's what the little dragons got. So I mean, yeah, it makes sense that they would have a mane.
But the way that the mane is drawn is sort of feather-like. Like through a bed of clouds, it could be mistaken for feathers. But you're right. Now that I'm looking at the King of the Dragon pictures, like that's almost definitely a dragon. But go look up a picture on Google. Like I'll put one in Discord for you. It is probably hair, but it looks a lot like feathers too. But yeah, I'm on Team Dragon now. I'm convinced it's a dragon up in the sky.
I mean, I don't think it convinced me. I'm just saying they look like. I mean, I could be wrong. Like, I have been known to be wrong several times.
Oh, you've never been wrong in your entire life.
Don't tell the people on Discord that, I mean, on this podcast that don't need to know this information. But I guess with that, we're gonna end it off here. Next episode, the next podcast is gonna be the finishing the last 3 episodes, season 2. We're gonna figure out we're gonna figure all this ends, and where season 3 is gonna eventually pick up. We got much more of this until we're done with this. Then we're gonna probably just take a break from all this, since like we've been going at this for a while, and your health probably is kind of fleeting because of it. I'm so sorry for that.
That's alright, dude. I had a good time, but I'm gonna go to sleep now.
All right, see ya. And with that, we're gonna end this podcast off here. See you guys next week.